The top of the Mafia's green light list, meaning all other gangs have a green light to go ahead and assault or even OL gangsters.
We got a green light that's like open season for anybody, you know?
Whatever we got is ours, you know? If they want something, they just go get their own. That's it.
This East Coast Crip, who does not want to be identified, explains Florencia and East Coast are bitter enemies.
It's war, I'm telling you, it's war out there.
This East Coast gangster says it can be summed up in a word.
Drugs. Starts off with drugs. You know, it was getting short on our connections, so we decided to go rob these people and get some dope. And that's what it really jumped off at.
Informants tell Fox 11 News the Mexican Mafia is now pressing all Florencia cliques to seek revenge for the stolen drugs.
The landscape of organized crime in California is deeply influenced by the power dynamics and rivalries between its most notorious gangs. Rooted in the state's prison systems and sprawling into its streets, these gangs have shaped the history of gang culture through violence, defiance, and alliances. Among them, the Mexican Mafia, La Ame, stands as a dominant force, wielding influence over numerous street gangs across Southern California. However, not all gangs have submitted to its authority. Several factions, such as the Barrio Maravilla, Lowell Street Locos, Opal Street Locos, East Coast Crips, and Nuestra Familia, have boldly defied La Ame, often at great personal and organizational cost. These gangs' resistance to the Mexican Mafia's taxation system, control, and violence has sparked decades of conflict, shaping their identities as outlaws within California's gang hierarchy. This exploration delves into the histories, rivalries, and impacts of these defiant gangs, highlighting their roles in the broader narrative of organized crime.
In a high-security federal courtroom in Los Angeles, 13 men are now on trial, charged with conspiring to commit narcotics trafficking and extortion. Prosecutors say the men are part of a ruthless organization known as the Mexican Mafia, also called La Ame, Spanish for the letter M. It may sound like a crime syndicate from south of the border, but in fact it is a California prison gang that began 40 years ago. Today, its power and influence have spread far beyond the walls of Folsom and San Quentin.
Cream of the crop. We were the best equivalent I can give you would be like the Green Berets in the military. We consider ourselves an elite group. We were tough guys.
How many people?
Personally, about a dozen.
There are only a few hundred made members of La Ame, and half of them are in prison. But they're so feared that law enforcement takes extraordinary precautions whenever they move them. The LA Sheriff's Department transported some by helicopter for trial in 1995, blindfolding them to protect the security of the deputies. Down on the streets of Los Angeles, the Mexican Mafia commands the allegiance of tens of thousands of Hispanic gang members. La Ame routinely enlists gang members to carry out Mexican Mafia business.
But he's Frankie B., a member of the Mexican Mafia, also called M, who has convictions for burglary, armed robberies, drug dealing, and assault with a deadly weapon. He spent more than half his adult years in prison.
That's his daddy.
9 years ago, he appeared to be a loving dad here at home in Pomona. But at the time, this Mafia dropout says Frankie B. was in a fight for his life.
All of them are fighting for power.
Frankie B., unlike most Mexican Mafia members, was from Northern California. But when paroled in the early 1990s, he set up shop in the San Gabriel Valley. Pomona detectives say he once threatened over $20 and was always dabbling where he shouldn't. Pomona is the territory of a rival Mexican Mafia boss, Big Mike Lerma. Lerma's goddaughter in 2004 wrote to him in prison, and in this letter obtained by Fox 11 News, she complained that Frankie B. keeps threatening our family. Big Mike writes back, not to worry, things have a way of working out in time. Gang specialist Leo Duarte.
Frankie B. was apparently, the information that was, going around was that he was stepping on toes.
According to this law enforcement intelligence report, mafiosos Sal Toro Hernandez and Daryl Dashing D. Castrajón were also upset that Frankie B. was taxing drug dealers in their Inland Empire territories.
Mexican Mafia is a powerful prison gang formed in 1957 by 13 Hispanic street gang members. Initially formed within the California prison system, the Mexican Mafia aimed to control criminal activities inside and outside the prisons while protecting its members from other prison gangs. The organization relied on intimidation, fear, and violence to enforce its influence. By 1992, the Mexican Mafia sought to expand its reach beyond prison walls, issuing an edict to Southern California Latino street gangs. These gangs were required to pay tribute or a share of their criminal earnings to the Mexican Mafia. In return, the N offered protection and affiliation with its larger criminal network. The gang had already positioned itself as a dominant force in the drug trade, leveraging its reputation for extreme violence. Many street gangs complied with the demand, either out of loyalty or fear. However, some refused, including MS-13, which insisted on keeping its drug revenue independent. Defiance of the Mexican Mafia came at a high cost. Rebel gangs were placed on a hit list called the Green Light, marking them as targets for retaliation. This designation often led to bloody violence, both in prison and on the streets, as the Mexican Mafia and its affiliates sought to enforce their authority. The conflict triggered a cycle of revenge deletions, resulting in heavy losses on all sides. The Mexican Mafia's brutality and intimidation tactics solidified its reputation as one of the most feared prison gangs in the United States. Those who chose to resist, such as the Barrio Maravilla, Lowell Street Locos, and Opal Street Locos, faced ongoing violence and bloodshed, making their defiance a dangerous gamble. This war between the Mexican Mafia and its detractors entrenched animosities that persist to this day, leaving a lasting impact on gang culture in Southern California.
A couple of months ago, you guys would have been fighting each other. Now you're here bowling together.
Due to this project, we've been able to get the neighborhoods together, whereas before we had fighting all the time. See, you wouldn't be able to go into their neighborhood. Like this man here is from Arizona. I'm from Mariana. We've been having feuds all for a long time. And due to this project, we slowed it down where we could pass through there and they'll see us. Hey, it's not that we're tied together already, but yet we could pass through and say, hey, what's going on, just pass through due to this project. See, just helped out a lot, saving a lot of lives.
Let me ask you, he's from Mariana, you're from Arizona. A couple of months ago, you might have been fighting each other. Now, how do you feel sitting next to him?
I don't really got no feelings towards it, but it's all right.
You have a better feeling, you don't have to worry about turning around every time a car passes by. See? You don't have to. You could be in your neighborhood drinking with your homeboys or whatever, and you don't have to worry about a car passing by and shooting. See, that's what this project's for. People before wouldn't even come outside to their yards because they're afraid of a car pass by shooting.
Yeah, what I want you to do is just tell me why you did the time.
Okay.
Okay, and then I want you to show me.
I got busted when I was 17 years old. Got out at the age of 21. Right here, good shit, right here.
Yeah.
Bullet. You can see the bullet right there.
Who shot you?
The bullet went in through here.
Who shot you?
God, people never got caught.
You know who they were, though?
I know who they were.
The Barrio Maravilla, also known as the Maravilla Chapters or Maravillosos, is a collective of several smaller, predominantly Mexican-American street gangs that originated in unincorporated East Los Angeles, California. Established in the early 1930s, Maravilla is considered one of the first gangs in East Los Angeles. Over the years, the Maravilla name has spread to other areas, including the San Gabriel Valley, Montebello, Nevada, and the Inland Empire. Unlike many other East Los Angeles gangs, the Maravilla organization refused to submit to the Mexican Mafia by paying taxes or sharing a portion of their criminal profits. This defiance, which began in the early 1990s, led to the Maravilla gangs being green-lighted by Mexican Mafia marking them as targets for all Serrano-affiliated gangs. This decision effectively made Maravilla enemies of both the Mexican Mafia and its vast network of allied gangs. The green light status created numerous challenges for Maravilla members, both in prison and on the streets. In 1993, Law M began enforcing a taxation system for all gangs under its control, holding meetings to implement mandatory peace agreements and reduce drive-by shootings. During one such meeting, members of the Lopez Maravilla clique were asked to pay taxes but refused, asserting their independence. This defiance led to Lopez Maravilla being the first Maravilla clique to be green-lighted, with other Maravilla cliques soon following. The consequences of being green-lighted were severe. In Los Angeles County Jail, Maravilla members were frequently targeted by Serrano-affiliated gangs. To mitigate the violence, the city eventually placed Maravilla members in their own jail module, separate from other Serrano gangs. Despite this, the feud with Mexican Mafia continued on the streets, with multiple violent incidents further straining the relationship. In 2008, a Maravilla gang member shot and deleted a man affiliated with Serrano gangs while he waited at a bus stop. The shooter also flashed a gang hand sign to intimidate witnesses at the scene. In 1994, the various Maravilla gangs in East Los Angeles agreed to a truce, which lasted over a year. Law enforcement attributed this temporary peace to their shared animosity toward the Mexican Mafia. Over time, Maravilla members embraced their green-lighted status, referring to themselves as Green Light Gang and solidifying their identity as independent from Law M. By the mid-2000s, the Mexican Mafia reportedly removed the green light on Maravilla, although tensions between the two factions persist to this day. Despite the challenges and their ongoing defiance, the Maravilla gangs remain a prominent symbol of resistance against the Mexican Mafia in East Los Angeles.
Lowell Street Locos.
This is Lowell Street in El Sereno.
We're greenlighters,
where bodies are tattooed with the words Green Pride.
Tax-free, we don't pay no taxes.
And tax-free. Gang members tell us it's a story that started back in '93.
With them wanting money from us, and we didn't want to cooperate, so they put a green light on us.
Them is the Mexican Mafia, or La M. Gang members say at a series of meetings like this one near Dodger Stadium, the Mafia called on all Latino gang members to kick back a share of drug profits to La M. Lowell Street gangsters didn't go along with the program.
They came to us wanting taxes, we said no. We're our own people, that's it.
And that refusal put Lowell gang members in a tough spot. For years now, near the top of the Mafia's green light list, meaning all other gangs have a green light to go ahead and assault or even Lowell gangsters.
We got a green light that's like open season for anybody,
Whatever we got is ours, They want something, they just go get their own. That's it.
One LAPD gang investigator describes Lowell gangsters in rebellion against La M. For example, law enforcement intelligence says Antonio Rodriguez, known as Tonito, was the Mafia tax collector in the El Sereno area. Lowell had no respect for him.
I heard he did a lot of bad things, even to kids, killing kids and stuff. But he's always had someone do it for him in his dirty work,
Here in broad daylight in the spring of 1995, bullets ripped through Tonito's windshield, and he slumped over dead in the driver's seat on an El Sereno street. One cop describes it as a daring surgical operation. After trailing Tonito in this stolen SUV, detectives and homeboys confirm the shooter was a 19-year-old Lowell gang member.
Rest in peace is the one that did that. They got him, though,
Investigators say not long after Tonito was given the last rites, the Mexican Mafia ordered revenge for his death. A barrage of bullets 3 months later crashed this '81 Cadillac in Lincoln Heights. This time, Tonito's killer was dead. A second Lowell homeboy left paralyzed and a third wounded. Police say the hitman was Javier Marquez, nicknamed Gangster, and that he shouted, "You vatos have a green light, and this is for Tonito," right before he unloaded his 9mm. He is now serving life in prison without parole.
9 Street Locos are a predominantly Hispanic street gang located in the northeast section of Los Angeles. Lowell Street Boys started off as a clique of El Sereno Rifa in 1990 by a small group of teenagers that lived in Lowell Street and primarily hung out there. This section of the territory was previously claimed by the Lock clique of Sereno. By 1992, Lowell Street Boys refused to pay taxes to the local tax collector from Barrio El Sereno Rifa on behalf of the Mexican Mafia prison gang. Collecting taxes was a new rule in 1992, so the Lowell Street guys decided not to follow a rule that most of Los Angeles would eventually follow. The tax collector from ESR placed the Lowell Street Boys on a la lista, or green-lighted, meaning that they were to become rivals to the rest of El Sereno and all other gangs. Being green-lighted would mean that rivalries from other gangs would increase, and if in custody, Lowell Street gang members would be targeted in jail and prison. Following the green light, several El Sereno members conspired to delete the tax collector in 1992. But the leadership of the gang put 100% of the blame of that deletion on the Lowell Street Boys. In December of 1992, 2 Lowell Street members were stabbed in the Los Angeles County Jail, but they survived. On April 28, 1995, Lowell Street gang members shot and deleted Mexican Mafia-made member Antonio "Tonito" Rodriguez, 29, while he sat in a car in El Sereno. Although they were already greenlit, this homicide further strained their relationship with El Sereno and the Mexican Mafia, perhaps putting them on permanent green light status. Lowell members began to embrace the idea that they were green-lighted and used the term green light gang to describe themselves. Today, the gang close to inactive with very few members. They continued to operate it until the early 2000s, but their presence has dramatically declined, perhaps because of the green light.
And what's especially disturbing is a growing number of innocent people in what one detective describes as absolute genocide going on. 23-year-old Brian Thomas pulls his car into a neighborhood liquor store to buy a pack of cigarettes. Detectives say Thomas is a good kid who works as a UPS driver and goes to night school. But he's about to... Riding in the passenger seat is a casual friend from the neighborhood, 24-year-old Louis Mobley. Mobley, a parolee well known on the streets as Kane, is a member of the East Coast Crips. Investigators believe this unidentified, probably here selling drugs in the parking lot, is from a rival gang called Florencia 13. He slowly walks off to pick up a hidden gun.
Man.
This East Coast Crip, who does not want to be identified, explains Florencia and East Coast are bitter enemies.
It's war, I'm telling you, it's war out there.
Sheriff's detectives believe within this 3-square-mile area in South Central, there have been as many as 3 dozen and more than 100 shootings since January of last year. All of them connected to an East Coast Florencia gang war.
They've been dropping like flies, man.
Here at this hangout for a Florencia clique called the Assassins.
Assassins, AS, 69th Street and Hooper.
No one is making any apologies.
If you gotta do it, you gotta do it. All right, you gotta do what you gotta do. They drop one of us, we drop 2 of them. They drop 2 of us, we drop 3 of them fools. That's the way it is, you know? Yeah. So trying to survive out here, man.
No one in this Florencia group will discuss details about what started. But this East Coast gangster says it can be summed up in a word.
Drugs. Starts off with drugs. You know, it was getting short on our connections. So we decided to go rob these people and get some dope. And that's what it really jumped off at.
The East Coast Crips is one of the largest African-American street gang organizations in South Los Angeles, California. Operating more like a franchise, the ECC is composed of numerous independent subsets scattered throughout the region and beyond. While most East Coast Crips factions are based in South Central Los Angeles, Notable subsets, such as the 190 East Coast Crips in Carson and the 1200 block East Coast Crips in Riverside, have expanded the gang's influence outside of the city. The East Coast Crips includes numerous subsets, each associated with specific neighborhoods. Among them are the First Street East Coast Crips, originating in the Aliso Pico Gardens, the 5-9 East Coast Crips, based near 59th Street and Hooper Avenue, and the 6-pack East Coast Crips, which consists of the 6 Deuce, 6-6, 6-7, 6-8, and 6-9 East Coast Crips. Other prominent groups include the 7-6 East Coast Crips, located near 76th Street and Central Avenue, the 8-9 East Coast Crips, centered around 89th Street and Compton Avenue, and the 9-7 East Coast Block Crips and Q102 East Coast Crips, operating near 102nd Street and Town Avenue. The 11-8 East Coast Crips and 190 East Coast Crips, with the latter being one of the largest factions, further extend the gang's reach. The East Coast Crips are predominantly African American and boast a membership of over 2,500 individuals. Their history includes a notable rivalry with the Mexican Mafia and its affiliates. This conflict dates back to a robbery in which the East Coast Crips allegedly stole a large drug shipment from a Mexican Mafia affiliate. This act triggered a bitter feud that has persisted for decades. In 1996, the gang's 6-pack Crips faction deleted a Serrano gang member, further intensifying the animosity. By 2004, tensions escalated when a Mexican Mafia leader imprisoned in Pelican Bay State Prison ordered a cleansing of African American gangs. The directive was carried out by Florentia 13, F13, leading to increased violence between the East Coast Crips and Serrano-aligned gangs. Today, the East Coast Crips remain a significant force in South Los Angeles and surrounding areas. Despite pressure from law enforcement and ongoing gang rivalries, the East Coast Crips continues to thrive, engaging in criminal activities such as drug trafficking, robbery, and extortion. Their defiance of law and their ability to maintain influence across multiple neighborhoods have solidified their reputation as one of the most prominent Crip factions in Southern California. This beef came to an end a couple of years ago. The Opal Street Locos is a small, predominantly Mexican-American street gang based in the Boyle Heights district of Los Angeles, California. Named after Opal Street, the gang became known for its refusal to pay taxes to the Mexican Mafia, a stance that made them outlaws among other gangs aligned with the Mexican Mafia. Their defiance and independence have placed them at odds with all Southern California gangs, which have close affiliations with the Mexican Mafia. Members of the Opal Street Locos are recognized for using the Roman numeral, symbolizing their resistance to the Mexican Mafia's control. This refusal to pay tribute resulted in their neighborhood being placed on Law Eames' hit list. By the 1990s, the gang fully embraced its outlaw status and declared war on all Serrano gangs, including Barrio Nuevo Estrada, White Fence, and Indiana Dukes. The gang's territory is geographically located southwest of the Santa Ana Freeway, between Grande Vista Avenue and Calzona Street. Within this area, the Opal Street Locos engage in a wide range of criminal activities, including drug trafficking, robbery, extortion, murder, burglary, racketeering, illegal gambling, theft, and felony vandalism. Despite their relatively small size, the Opal Street Locos' defiance of the Mexican Mafia and their willingness to confront Serrano gangs have made them a notable force in Los Angeles gang culture. Their independent stance and open opposition to Law Eames' influence have cemented their reputation as outlaws in the gang world. Nuestra Familia, Spanish for Our Family, is one of the most daring and organized gangs to defy the Mexican Mafia, also known as Law Eames. Formed in the 1960s at the Correctional Training Facility in Soledad, California, It originated as an alliance of Northern California inmates seeking protection from the Mexican Mafia's dominance.
Now, program shutdown time, gentlemen! It is asked for your full cooperation and your full participation in shutting tonight's program down. To all my strong and striving norteño raza, buenas noches! Gracias, mi raza!
How easy was it to get messages in and out?
Easy. Real easy. Real easy.
These four men took the deal. Epi Cortina, fellow gang member. He lived on the shoe for 9 years before he renounced his membership in the Mexican-American gang Nuestra Familia. Epi, tell us what kinds of crimes were perpetrated, ordered from within the shoe for Nuestra Familia. In this surveillance video, members of Nuestra Familia are holding what Gruel calls a business meeting.
Here you have the regiment leaders coming from San Francisco, from San Jose, from Salinas, from Visalia, from Oakland, sitting around for a meeting.
Meeting of the cities.
One of the members brought this document, and so what you have is an agenda.
On an FBI surveillance tape is a group of gang members meeting in a California hotel room to discuss their latest orders from Pelican Bay.
This is coming from the high command. I'm conveying to you what the high command wants us to do.
The Nuestra Familia is considered one of the most sophisticated prison gangs in the United States.
Like so many others, Robert Grattan joined Nuestra Familia in the 1990s while he was in prison. He rose to the rank of captain, but eventually defected and told the government the gang's secrets. Now in hiding, he agreed to talk to us in disguise.
To join is a prerequisite.
Over time, Nuestra Familia became a structured and disciplined criminal organization, growing in power both inside prisons and on the streets. This rivalry has resulted in one of the longest and bloodiest gang wars in California's history, with over 600 murders attributed to conflicts between the two groups. The rivalry between Nuestra Familia and Law inmate is deeply rooted in geographic and cultural divides, with Northern California Chicanos opposing the Southern California-based Mexican Mafia. The conflict began in 1965 after a Mexican Mafia member stole a pair of shoes from a Northern California inmate at the Dual Vocational Institute in Tracy. This incident ignited a feud that has persisted for decades, causing chaos and bloodshed within California's prison system. Authorities have long been prepared for violent confrontations between these two gangs, which are known for their intense hatred of one another. Today, Nuestra Familia operates as a formidable criminal organization, engaging in a wide range of illegal activities, including drug trafficking, extortion, robbery, and deletions. Their primary sources of income include distributing both inside prisons and in the community, as well as extorting street-level drug dealers. While the gang primarily comprises Mexican Americans, its membership occasionally extends to other Latinos and non-Latinos. Members take a blood oath upon joining, pledging lifelong loyalty to the gang and prioritizing it above personal relationships, money, or drugs. Although women cannot become full members, they are often used for communication and smuggling purposes due to being less likely to draw law enforcement attention. The gang's operations are overseen by a leadership hierarchy centered in Pelican Bay State Prison, with David D.C. Cervantes currently serving as the highest-ranking leader. Cervantes' leadership has unified much of the organization, even amid occasional power struggles caused by relocating high-ranking members to other prisons. With approximately 250 official members and over 1,000 associates, Nuestra Familia wields significant influence beyond prison walls, extending its operations to the streets of the United States, Mexico, and Canada. Despite efforts by law enforcement to crack down on their activities, the gang continues to adapt and regroup, maintaining relevance in the world of organized crime. Through a strict hierarchy, disciplined operations, Nuestra Familia remains one of the most powerful and notorious prison-based gangs in the United States. This NF gang had a truce with the Mexican Mafia in today's times, with tensions between these two gangs slowing down. The defiance of gangs like the Barrio Maravilla, Lowell Street Locos, Opal Street Locos, East Coast Crips, and Nuestra Familia against the Mexican Mafia, Law Amy, represents a unique chapter in California's gang history. Each gang's refusal to submit to the Mexican Mafia demands for tribute has come with significant consequences, from violent greenlighting to perpetual conflict. These rivalries have not only shaped the structure of organized crime, but have also left an indelible mark on communities across California. While some gangs have faded into near extinction under the pressure of green light retaliation, others have continued to evolve, adapt, and even thrive. The enduring conflicts, alliances, and defiance of these groups illustrate the complexity of gang culture in California, where power, survival, and identity collide in an ongoing struggle. Ultimately, these stories serve as a testament to the resilience and determination of these gangs to maintain their independence, even in the face of overwhelming odds.